I forgot to mute my mic during a Ding Talk meeting. I whistled at the president, who was in a wet white shirt. Wet body temptation. No fun. I'd rather be straightforward. Pretty handsome. Thinking of buying your house. Alright, whistles. You're not proactive enough. I need to move on to the next one. At this moment, the president's video screen went black. When it came back, the background was no longer his home. It looked like a corridor. Open the door. Is this proactive enough? I suddenly glanced at the little microphone icon in the lower right corner. Oh no, I didn't mute my mic. President Christopher was newly transferred this year, reportedly a wealthy heir who returned from studying abroad to take over the family business. To deal with him, departments have been working overtime for weeks. Now, even on a weekend, we have to have a Ding Talk meeting to prepare for a bidding project. As the president's assistant, my attendance is mandatory. I had planned to go to a bar in S-City with my best friend this week, but a call in the morning ruined everything. Overtime, the cursed capitalism. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. So I switched Christopher's video to the main screen and secretly recorded a video to send to my friend Delilah. Look at this cursed capitalism. Imagine him as a male model and watch him carefully. After sending the message, I took a serious look at Christopher with his wet hair, white shirt, delicate fair face, and barely visible collarbone. His pair of charming eyes seemed to entice, contrasting with his serious and aloof demeanor, creating a sense of restraint. It makes one want to see him lose his composure. As a modern office worker, usually obedient, I let loose with my words now. Wet body temptation. No fun. Christopher, are you trying to seduce someone? Why not just strip off? Since the video meeting was with department heads, no one was paying attention to what I was saying on screen. Though you are quite handsome, thinking of buying your house. Christopher, who had been listening to the reports, suddenly frowned and his gaze shifted to the screen, meeting mine directly as if he was staring at me. I froze, my heart racing. Even though I knew he couldn't hear these words, I still felt uneasy. At this moment, the president's screen suddenly went black. I felt a sigh of relief and muttered, "He's really full of sexual tension. Must be quite a troublemaker." When Christopher's screen came back, the background was no longer his home with its large floor-to-ceiling windows, but looked like a familiar corridor. Open the door. Is this home service enough? Once again, Christopher and I locked eyes through the screen, and my mind went blank, struck by the shock of what he said. What does this mean? Christopher is at my doorstep. Didn't I mute my mic? I didn't mute my mic and was rambling on. At this point, I didn't know whether to mute my mic or open the door first. After a few seconds of contemplation, I resignedly walked toward the door. Opening it, I saw Christopher holding his laptop in one hand, his other hand in his pocket, calmly looking at me. He spoke coldly. Didn't expect Valentina to be so busy. Are you rushing to the next meeting? I stiffened, took a deep breath, looked up at Christopher with a slight smile, and said, "Boss, we're in a meeting. What brings you here suddenly?" Christopher raised an eyebrow, his eyes glinting with a hint of mockery. "Isn't this what you wanted?" "So, I came over right away." I glanced at the screen still showing the meeting. Did he come over to punish me publicly? Cursed capitalism. I was just speaking casually. Is it really necessary? Boss, you're really joking. Still calling me boss? Christopher's lips curved slightly, his chin nodding. Aren't you curious whether I can be a troublemaker? The last part he whispered in my ear, deliberately moving the laptop away with his right hand. I immediately jumped back and invited Christopher in. Although having a man and woman alone together isn't ideal, but Ding Talk has people of all genders and ages watching. I couldn't be afraid. If I let fear control me, how would I face everyone at the company on Monday? Boss, we're still in the meeting. If you have something serious to discuss, just say it. I quickly muted the computer, then went to the kitchen to pour a glass of water and handed it to him. We can't let irrelevant jokes affect our work. Christopher sat on the sofa, typing calmly on his keyboard, and waited until the sales director finished speaking before he spoke. I have some personal matters with Valentina, so let's end the meeting here. After speaking, he shut his laptop screen, crossed his hands behind his head, and leaned back on the sofa, his beautiful eyes slightly squinted. All right, tell me, where are we going to see the next one? When Delilah arrived with dinner, I was slumped on the sofa like a salted fish. What happened? I sent you a WeChat message but got no reply. Taking the fried chicken she handed me, I weakly waved my hand and replied with a gloomy expression. Don't even mention it. I've been tortured by the capitalist to the point of dying. Delilah's eyes lit up. So exciting. Indeed, this capitalist is really handsome. Where can you find a male model worth billions? Oh no, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't dare to find a male model worth billions. Truly, a word of temptation is like a knife, stabbing deeply. I took a bite of the chicken wing and rolled my eyes. Quite stimulating indeed. Spent almost 20 versions of a document on my day off. You try it. Editing documents, Delilah said, disappointed. I thought it was something else. How could she think otherwise? Christopher is indeed handsome, but he seems to hold grudges. Who knows how things will be in the future? Thinking of the half smile he had when leaving, I felt deflated. Hand me my phone. It ran out of battery this afternoon. Delilah got up to fetch my phone for me. I wondered why you didn't answer my calls. I lifted my chin, wiped the oil from my hands with a tissue, and checked my phone. To my surprise, there were over 100 unread messages. What's going on? There were more than 10 messages from Delilah that could be ignored for now. I opened the pinned work chat group and found nearly 300 new messages. What kind of big scoop did I miss? Opening the chat, it was indeed about me. Question. What are the personal matters between Valentina and the boss? Ha ha ha, definitely something rated. Valentina's awesome. The boss went straight for her. Damn, the boss arrived in no time. What's the situation? Are they in the same apartment complex? Was it a covert operation? Looking at the boss's figure, must be a double-door refrigerator. Valentina's lucky. What about Monday? Should we call her the boss's wife or pretend we don't know? What about Monday? The boss's wife might not even make it to the company. I felt overwhelmed and exited the group chat. I saw 3 new messages from Christopher. Cursed capitalist. 7:10 tomorrow. Be ready downstairs. Cursed capitalist. What do you want for breakfast? Cursed capitalist. No reply. Moving on to the next candidate. What the heck? I was about to complain when Christopher's call came in. I hesitated for a couple of seconds before answering, only to hear his indifferent voice. Valentina, don't tell me you're already looking for the next candidate. What's with this tone, making it sound like I'm a heartless person? Christopher, you're joking. I'm focused on work. Where would I have time for romance? Oh, Christopher chuckled lightly, his voice soft with a slight intonation. Then it's truly a company issue if we haven't even left time for romance. I stayed silent. What's with this guy? Talking ambiguously, appearing cold on the outside but actually twisted inside. It's all right. No rush for romance, I said with a smile. Okay, so what do you want for breakfast tomorrow? Christopher quickly changed the subject. I was about to reply when Delilah came crying, begging me to help her watch her idol's live stream. She ran over to snatch my phone, so I quickly ended the call. After some hesitation, I texted Christopher, Liu Yuxi pulling willow branches. Pause. No need to trouble yourself tomorrow morning. My friend will take me. Thanks. The next morning, Delilah, who was supposed to pick me up, was wrapped in her blanket like she was in a coma, and couldn't be woken up no matter what. By the time I took a cab to the office, I was nearly a minute late. Hiding behind the glass door wearing a baseball cap, I saw that most of my colleagues had arrived, and I didn't know how to face the crazy things I said yesterday. I wish that I could be like Ziwei, out of sight, out of mind. Suddenly, the glass door in front of me was knocked. I looked up to see Christopher leaning against the door, his head tilted as he looked down at me. Playing wallflower here. His dark golden hair sparkled under the light. One hand propped up the door, while the other held several paper bags, giving him a lazy and indifferent look, with only his slightly upturned lips revealing a hint of delight. Even though I had seen him yesterday, I was too focused on my work to really notice him. Now that we were face to face in the office, I felt my ears turn red instantly. Christopher, you're here so early today. I stiffened my neck and instinctively pressed myself against the door, meeting his gaze for a few seconds before quickly looking down. He withdrew his arm, stood up straight, and took a small step back, as if giving me space. This action left me momentarily stunned. I got up early to deliver breakfast to someone, but it seems that person prefers to be late rather than appreciate it. What kind of talk is this? Is this a new workplace rule? Leadership showing kindness is suspicious. Haha, Christopher, you're joking. Aren't you saving on fuel? I waved my hand and frowned seriously. Haven't you heard? Fuel prices are rising again. He didn't say anything, just quietly looked at me. His beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as he stuffed the paper bags into my arms, then pursed his lips with a small smile. Haven't heard about it. I brought you breakfast. As Christopher turned to enter the elevator, he suddenly paused, pointed to the door behind me, and said, "By the way, your voice was rather loud earlier." When Christopher stepped into the elevator, I turned around abruptly to see the glass door lined with curious colleagues. After I awkwardly carried the breakfast to my desk and sat down, I checked my phone. Sure enough, the chat group was exploding. Boss's wife came in with a heart-shaped breakfast. What's going on? Just one night? Valentina skyrocketed. Anyone who can lip read. What did Christopher just say? Quick, translate. Not sure what was said, but Christopher looked so grieved and like a husband. Upstairs +1. So yesterday's meeting was a little couple's game. Smell that. Valentina's side smells like delicious buns. Love buns. Want to eat. Mr. Luzan once said, if you don't explode in silence, you'll dive into silence. The buns do smell good. As I hid in the break room eating breakfast, thinking about the events of the past few days, I really felt overwhelmed. To think, Christopher and I should have met earlier. I started interning at the Lu group during college, initially at the headquarters in a city, and Christopher was there too, working at the base level. However, he was at the base level while I was at the lower level of the base. So technically, I was already assisting Christopher in a city that after an incident, I was transferred back to S City, which was seen as a promotion to president's assistant. But I never expected Christopher to become the president of the branch office, a proper heir not staying at headquarters. What's he doing here? When Secretary Everly had her coffee rejected for the 5th time, she finally reluctantly came to find me. Valentina, Christopher said to bring him the coffee. She glanced at me dismissively. She had also been transferred from headquarters and was initially Christopher's field assistant. When she heard he was coming to S City, she immediately applied for a transfer. Once she arrived, she looked down on colleagues, thinking herself an elite from headquarters, constantly talking about Christopher. Thus, during Sunday's meeting, Christopher didn't have her participate and continued to use me as his assistant. I really don't understand why little Christopher uses someone from the branch as an assistant. As I went to the break room to get coffee, Everly followed with her waist swaying, muttering behind me in a low voice, just loud enough for me to hear. I had a lot on my mind, and while the busy morning was manageable, stopping now was frustrating. I added two sugar cubes to the coffee. Everly suddenly exclaimed, "What are you doing? Don't you know little Christopher doesn't like sweet coffee? How are you even an assistant?" The 2 sugar cubes had already sunk to the bottom. My hand paused while stirring the coffee. Christopher doesn't like sweet coffee. Really? I used to make him coffee in the city, and he seemed to like it sweet. While I was still in a daze, Everly stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and lifted it reflexively. I turned and spilled the hot coffee on her, making her cry out in pain. What's going on? Christopher, who had appeared without me noticing, looked at me and then at the distressed Everly, frowning. Wasn't the coffee for me? Why is it all over her? This conversation had Everly's manipulative poise rebuffed before she even had a chance to employ them. Little Christopher, maybe I did something wrong that upset Sister Sue, so she threw coffee at me, Everly said, her voice trembling with faux sadness as she subtly edged closer to Christopher. The sweet, syrupy smell of coffee mixed with perfume made Christopher's eyebrows furrow deeply the moment he came close. Noticing this, Everly continued, I was just trying to remind Sister Sue not to put so much sugar in her coffee. Little Christopher, don't you dislike overly sweet coffee? A blatant attempt to take credit. I grimaced and met Christopher's inscrutable gaze. I forced a smile and said, "Sorry, Christopher, I personally like sweet coffee." So, just then, with a smug look on Everly's face, Christopher suddenly reached into his pocket, pulling out a few pieces of Sue Fuji fruit-flavored gummies from the pocket of his high-end suit. I instinctively looked up and met his gaze. The next second, Christopher smiled slightly and said nonchalantly, "Don't you like these? Consider it a treat." The incident ended with Everly apologizing to me. After all, she had no spare clothes at the company, and without an apology, she would have to parade around in her coffee-stained outfit. I popped a gummy into my mouth and propped my chin on my hand, staring intently as Everly removed her shirt. When she turned around, blushing and pointing at me angrily, she shouted, "Close your eyes, you pervert." Can't deny it. She really had a great figure. "Who's looking at you?" "I'm just thinking," I said, stubbornly closing my eyes. Without the distraction of her alluring figure, my mind started wandering. Thoughts of the Christopher from Sitia, the one who delivered breakfast in the morning, or even the one who had just given me candy, filled my mind, not to mention the one who was naked. Wait, how would I know what Christopher looks like without clothes? As I tried to recall, Christopher, with his 187 centimeters height, appeared to have a well-toned physique beneath his fair, handsome exterior, a veritable mini-fridge with perfect mermaid lines and six-pack abs. You're thinking perverted thoughts again. Your face is all red. Everly's cold jade bracelet touched my face, jolting me back to reality. Wait, is this a fantasy? It feels so real. At this point, Everly seemed to regard me as a pervert and must have secretly joined the group gossiping about me and Christopher, even spreading tales of my so-called perverted behavior. That two others. "Hey, you little brat, you wouldn't understand. Comrade Everly, Valentina being a pervert is old news. Don't make such a fuss." "Yeah, I've seen Valentina drooling over Linda from HR, and groping her. Not to mention, with a handsome guy like Christopher. Seriously, if I had a partner like that, I'd be even more outrageous. So bold, I declare. When they officially announce, I'll donate 18 boxes of Min Ice Fire Blend. Unbearable. Les Group's team-building events are a long-standing tradition, held quarterly with each change in leadership. This time, it's for the new branch president. The secretary's office, led by Everly, handled the logistics, and since she had experience with such events at headquarters, I expected her to be quite skilled. So, when we arrived, I was surprised to see that the bus seats were indeed perfectly allocated. They were assigned precisely by head count. The only available seat was next to Christopher, who was leaning against the window, staring out with an inscrutable expression. "Valentina, we're waiting for you. We're about to depart. If it weren't for me needing to check the navigation, you wouldn't be sitting next to little Christopher." I glanced at Everly in silence, forcing a smile as I said, "Actually, White Secretary, normally the president has a separate vehicle arrangement and doesn't need to." At that moment, Everly winked in another direction, made a small, quick gesture, and said casually, "This is little Christopher's arrangement. Hurry and take your seat. We're about to leave." With no other choice and the whole bus waiting, I picked up my small bag and awkwardly approached the seat next to Christopher. As I reached for it, the driver braked suddenly, causing me to tumble into Christopher's lap. My head spun dizzily. His ABS were really hard. With my head hanging down, I felt a bit faint, and as I loosened my grip, my Bluetooth headphones fell under Christopher's legs. As I reached down to retrieve them, a hand rested on my shoulder. "Valentina, is this appropriate?" Christopher asked with a smirk. As expected, I lifted my head to find all the colleagues around us trying to suppress their gossiping glances. I was just trying to pick up my Bluetooth headphones. "Do you believe me?" "I do," Christopher answered with a light laugh, but the crowd's skepticism was evident. The team-building event was at a famous mountain resort in City S. After arriving, Everly, pushing a small suitcase, came bouncing over. Upon seeing me, she shot me a disapproving look and made a face with her phone before switching back to her demure demeanor and walking over to Christopher. Little Christopher, my suitcase is so heavy, I can't carry it. Only then did I realize I had forgotten my own suitcase. As I turned to retrieve it, I saw Christopher already approaching with my suitcase in tow. Christopher, I can handle it myself. I reached out to take the suitcase, but Everly slapped my hand away. Your suitcase is so big. Is it packed with bombs or something? She said, not giving me a chance to respond, and pushed me forward. Little Christopher, I'm handing my suitcase to you as well. Without hesitation, Everly naturally handed over her small suitcase with a smile and headed towards the guest house. I looked at Everly's graceful figure and beautiful face with a hint of envy. Being young is great. You can boldly confess your feelings and pursue them. She even dared to come to unfamiliar cities for Christopher. Feeling a little sour? Not much, just like Shanksy aged vinegar. After settling in for the evening, colleagues gathered in the courtyard for a barbecue. Some tables were playing drinking games and truth or dare. After feeling a bit car sick in the afternoon, I had been napping in my room and was now quite hungry. As I went downstairs, I was immediately called over to drink, with a glass already in hand. As I was about to reluctantly take it, a hand suddenly reached out, took the glass, and drank it in one go. The local homemade liquor was quite strong, and Christopher's quick gulp made his ears turn pink. Valentina hasn't eaten, so she shouldn't drink. Let her eat something first, Christopher said, handing me a skewer of grilled meat that was perfectly fatty and lean just the way I liked it. The delicious aroma made me lick my lips. Thank you, Christopher, I accepted without hesitation. Hunger was more pressing than anything. Come here, Valentina. There's mango sticky rice over here. Eat up. The homemade liquor here is really good. Right, Christopher. With Christopher here, where would Valentina get the chance to drink? Speaking of which, Valentina came from headquarters. Right, did you two know each other before? The colleagues were clearly quite tipsy, especially Ms. Tao from HR, who was now speaking without filter. I looked at Christopher anxiously and was relieved to see him remain calm. Don't say nonsense. I do know her. Back then, Valentina was also my assistant, Christopher said, naturally sitting next to me, helping with the food and speaking in a slow, deliberate manner. The atmosphere shifted from eerily quiet to lively and nosy in a matter of seconds. Wow, no wonder you two seem so in sync. Headquarters must have been quite something. Why did you move to City S? Yeah, Valentina's home is in City N, close to City A. Why come all the way here for work? Could it be that you two had a falling out? So Valentina came here, and then Christopher followed? Ms. Zhao, realizing the slip, the colleagues quickly covered Ms. Zhao's mouth and apologized to me and Christopher, saying, Ms. Zhao has had too much to drink and is talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. She means no harm. It would be better if it were a breakup. At least there was some resolution. It was actually a one-sided crush that never came to fruition. I'd been in love with Christopher since my first year interning in City A. He was rich, handsome, and though strict as a boss, he always shielded me from alcohol at social events, making it hard not to fall for him. If only that accident hadn't happened. I glanced at Christopher, who was absorbed in his phone, seemingly unaware of the conversation. It's definitely not a breakup. Little Christopher has been single all these years. Don't spread rumors, you delusional CP fans. Besides, Valentina probably thinks she's not worthy of Christopher, Everly said, coming over with a plate of grilled chicken wings and a tone of sarcasm. I had no intention of speaking up, but seeing the frustrated looks from my colleagues, I suddenly felt a surge of unspoken courage. What's wrong with CP fans? Damn it. I'm a perfect match. The best match. A celestial pairing. I suddenly looked up at Everly with a smile. She seemed surprised, probably thinking I was still that naive intern from back then. In that moment, I felt like an ISTP rather than wallowing in self-pity. It was better to channel my frustration outward. Everly, feeling embarrassed, took the challenge. TCH, I like little Christopher. I dare to confess. Do you? looking at her haughty chin and superior expression. I was enraged. What's there to be afraid of? I dare. Everly pointed at Christopher next to me. HMPH. All talk and no action. You were so bold in meetings. But are you brave enough to kiss him right here? Her challenge made me hesitate for a moment, as rationality took over. Talking is one thing, but doing it is another. After all, I'm the queen of lip service. I knew it. You can only talk big. With 18 male models behind a motorcycle, they'd all run off like butterflies. And you just hold your phone and look at handsome guys. Damn it. Screw it. I felt dizzy and, without thinking, turned and kissed Christopher's lips. The soft, warm sensation sent a jot through my mind. Where am I? What am I doing? Did I just kiss Christopher? Will he throw me into the tomb of the terracotta warriors? As I was lost in these thoughts and tried to pull away, Christopher suddenly wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close. His low, husky voice whispered in my ear, "Are you going to kiss and run like last time?" He then deepened the kiss, his hands holding my head, his long eyelashes brushing my eyelids. I tasted the strong flavor of alcohol. Yeah, it was really strong. After a long while, he let me go, his eyes filled with lingering affection. My face turned crimson as I turned to the colleagues who were eagerly watching. I cleared my throat and said calmly, "The liquor does taste quite good." Everly, sitting among the colleagues eating chicken wings, smirked, seeing my flushed face. She sniffed disdainfully and said, "I knew it. She's into smoking and drinking in private. I believe Christopher likes me." On the way back, I even made Everly switch seats to sit next to me, just to avoid Christopher. "You're such a coward," Everly said, eating hawthorn strips with disdain. I lazily put on an eye mask and shrug. "I'm not falling for your tricks again." As soon as I got home, I took a vacation, planning to use up my accumulated leave and invite my best friend Delilah to join me in some downtime. "Christopher said he likes you." "What? Is this a novel plot or what?" Delilah exclaimed excitedly. "So the crush you mentioned before was him?" "Yeah," I answered wearily. "Whoa. Did you agree on the spot to go straight to the Highlands?" "So, what's up? The handsome double-door mini fridge. Is it okay?" "Don't talk nonsense." I didn't answer him, and just taking leave to avoid him. Upon hearing this, Delilah's eyes widened. "Isn't this a stroke of luck? The person you like likes you back, and he's rich and handsome. Why wouldn't you agree?" I bit my lip and said nothing, curling up back in bed. Delilah didn't know about the past, and no one did. When I moved from City A back to City S, it wasn't a demotion, but rather because I had made a mistake and ran away. Since starting my internship at the Lou Corporation, I had been at headquarters for exactly 2 years. Initially, I was a junior clerk, then I moved up to being Christopher's assistant, making countless small mistakes along the way. Accidents like accidentally blocking the boss's car when he entered, drinking before him when he toasted, and the like were endless. Fortunately, though Christopher seemed aloof, he was actually quite considerate and didn't change assistants despite these issues. Until one time at a party, when General Manager Lee from a partner company took the opportunity to find me, while Christopher was busy with others. I was quite drunk and weak, and this middle-aged Lee, with a beer belly, took the stage to dance like a poor man's version of a boy band. He tried to drag me back to his hotel room, and I knocked him out with a bottle. Then I staggered into the elevator, feeling like I had a long, strange dream. In the dream, I forcibly kissed a young handsome guy, groped him, and then vomited all over him. The next morning, I found myself not in my own suite and remembered what had happened the night before. Panicking, I realized I had stayed in Christopher's room, though he seemed to have not checked in. Sure enough, the next day, General Manager Lee came to the company looking for trouble. He was indirect, but I knew he was targeting me. Feeling guilty, I requested a transfer from City A to City S. On the day I applied for the transfer, I wanted to see Christopher one last time, but I heard he had gone back to his old home for a meeting with the chairman, so I didn't get to see him. While I was wrapped in my blanket reminiscing, my WeChat notification dinged. It was a message from Everly. "Little Christopher invited you to dinner. Aren't you coming?" "Is that so?" I looked at the chat list and replied nonchalantly, "Sure, I'm on vacation. Oh, then I'll just accept the top-grade king crab on your behalf. By the way, no girl can refuse all sorts of milk tea temptations. Right, I'll take pictures for you. I have to admit, Everly knows how to push my buttons. While I was hesitating, Delilah snatched my phone and quickly replied to Christopher's message. Send the address. I'll go. Sent swiftly. Straighten up. Delilah patted my head. Christopher had booked a table at a 5-star restaurant in City S, known for its various king crab dishes, which I had been eyeing for a while. When I arrived by taxi, Christopher was already waiting in the lobby with 4 or 5 paper bags. Compared to his usual suits, today he was dressed in a black shirt, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, with neatly styled golden hair. Christopher, sorry I got caught in traffic. It's not late. Let's go up. Christopher led me to the restaurant's top floor and placed the milk teas from the paper bags on the table. I remember you said that whoever bought you all the flavors of milk tea, you'd date them. The aroma of the milk teas hit me, and I was stunned. I had indeed said that, back when I was at headquarters in City A. During a department gathering, my colleagues were asking about my requirements for a partner. Christopher was present, and feeling strangely shy. I had spontaneously mentioned this after seeing others drinking milk tea, words said on a whim, and yet someone had taken them seriously. By the way, I found that Shanghai lady you mentioned. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to be in this city, but I'll take you to Shanghai to drink it in a couple of days, Christopher said earnestly, with a hint of apology in his tone. What Shanghai lady? What are you talking about? I remember you mentioned it. This piece of information was overwhelming. I picked up a cup of thick so milk tea, took a sip to calm myself, and then remembered. Are you referring to the auntie from Shanghai? He tilted his head, signaling the waiter to bring the food, and a hint of understanding flashed in his eyes. That might be the name. Even Christopher had the areas of ignorance. This realization made me feel better and lifted my mood. Christopher, what did you want to talk about? I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my racing heart under control. About something significant in life. I planned to discuss it after dinner, Christopher said, his hands clasped together, his thumbs rubbing anxiously, looking somewhat nervous. It was surprising to see the usually commanding Christopher so nervous. But if I don't say it now, I might stay anxious and won't be able to hold my chopsticks. He smiled, shrugging his shoulders. Valentina, I like you. Straight to the point. Just a second ago he was joking. In an instant, my heart felt like it had turned to jelly and started dancing wildly. He looked at me quietly, his lips slightly dry, and said, I wasted some time dealing with Leanne. It was my carelessness that made you suffer. The board of directors is quite troublesome, and when I heard you were transferred to City S, I initially wanted to bring you back, but then I thought it might be better to wait until I've dealt with that scumbag before coming to find you. He actually knew about that incident. You know about it, so you're not mad at me. General Manager Lee is quite a prominent figure in Citia, and I really offended him. You did nothing wrong. For the first time, Christopher interrupted me. He was in the wrong, and you were defending yourself. Bad people should have bad consequences. You didn't have the power to resist, and as your superior, I should stand up for you. In the workplace, this is my responsibility, and I have an obligation to ensure your safety. Moreover, aside from being your superior, I'm also your admirer. I can't tolerate seeing the person I care about being wronged. Valentina, do you remember that time at the hotel when you forcibly kissed me? I think you should be responsible for that. A forcible kiss from Christopher. Could it be that wasn't a dream after all? No wonder I had a memory of Christopher in a bathrobe. It turns out that not only did I kiss him forcibly, but I also vomited on him. I rubbed my forehead awkwardly and swallowed hard. I was drunk at the time, and you didn't drink at the team building event, right? My mouth twitched. Well, Valentina, I'm a very traditional guy. I like you, so if you like me too, could you please take responsibility? Who could refuse a handsome guy being so straightforward, especially when he's my crush? Well, since you put it that way, I guess I'll reluctantly take responsibility. I want to hear you say that you also like me. Christopher looked at me intently, his beautiful peach blossom eyes filled with undeniable joy. At that moment, I felt Christopher could guess how I felt. My unspoken crush was like a fish in a market. With most of its water evaporated, it often felt like I couldn't hold on any longer. That a little bit of Joe would appear just in time, like a drop of water keeping me going. But now, it was different. His entire heart was like an ocean to me. With his arrival, love had also arrived. Christopher, I like you too. I exhaled a breath of relief, feeling a special sensation. Confessing to someone you like is so different from commenting on TikTok or discussing models with friends. Christopher rarely looks so happy. He stood up, walked to me, his tall frame blocking me, and leaned in. His peach blossom eyes filled with me, his ears turned slightly red, and he smiled bashfully. I initially just wanted to cuddle, but it's getting out of control. I frowned at his words, looked around, and asked softly, "What are you saying?" With such a lively girlfriend in front of me, Christopher sighed gently, reaching up to touch my earlobe, and leaned in so our noses touched. "You're so fragrant and soft. I want to kiss you." As he spoke, he nuzzled my nose and kissed my lips. In an instant, the light fragrance of Christopher's perfume enveloped me. This kiss was different from the one at the team-building event. It was a touch based purely on natural instincts after revealing his true feelings. So this is what kissing a man feels like. Having been single for over 20 years, it was worth it. I had planned to tease him and suggested going for a ride after eating the king crab, wanting to see how the restrained CEO would handle it. But he really did ride. He had even gotten a D-class and E-class driving license. Aren't the big bosses in TV shows usually chauffeured around? But wearing a suit and shirt while riding a motorcycle was indeed quite striking. Every time I touched Christopher's ABS, his lips curled up in a smile. However, the motorcycle speed didn't slow down. Instead, it picked up. I instinctively leaned against him, wrapping my arms tightly around his waist. "Hug tight, and you can touch as much as you want." His words floated in the wind to my ears. With my secret thoughts exposed, I blushed and was about to bury my face. But then I remembered he couldn't see me while riding, so I straightened up and boldly touched his ABS again, like a washboard. Cough cough, this is using the rights of a girlfriend. Sure, just a friendly reminder. There are many other rights to explore. I had no idea Christopher was so talkative. I thought he was quite aloof. "So, did you deliberately move to the same neighborhood after your transfer?" I was glad City S had a sea. Even from afar, the sunset by the seaside was a breathtaking view. After a while, he replied, "Could it be that I moved to City S to pursue you?" I was speechless, choking. "Oh, so you came to notify me about the headquarters punishment?" "Yes, the old chairman's decision is to punish you by marrying into the Liu family and giving you the chance to deal with the Li family yourself." "What do you mean?" "I don't want that incident to leave you with any bad memories, so having you handle it yourself might be more effective." I begged my old man for this. Although he's an old-fashioned man, he's always protective and can't stand to see his future daughter-in-law being mistreated. "Christopher, I'm not losing out. Some people say that doing more with less only fills the belly and paints big pictures, while others say doing less can still give you the best." I was so moved I couldn't hold back my tears, which ran down my natural dimples, my cute nose, and my full apple cheeks, falling onto my sharp chin and dripping down to my slim collarbone, landing in my 360, with no defense whatsoever. A good man is priceless. I used to only seek wealth, but now, at this moment, I also fell into the trap of love. "So, you're really in a relationship now?" Delilah exclaimed, tears and snot mixing, grabbing me. "Even though I played a part in pushing you into the love pit, being the only single dork still feels so bad. I leaned against the door, teary-eyed, and handed her a Gucci bag. "Here, it's from Christopher." Delilah immediately stopped crying, hugging the bag with a time to get married expression, and said, "Well, Christopher barely deserves you." The short vacation passed quickly, and Monday brought another busy work week. In the morning, I made Christopher drop me off 500 meters from the office so we could enter separately, hoping no one would notice anything. Even though the team building incident happened, I was still not ready to publicly acknowledge it, especially as the CEO's girlfriend. It felt a bit exciting, but I wasn't prepared. Look, Valentina's here. My God, such a huge bouquet of red roses. Must be 9,999 roses. It doesn't even fit on the desk. Christopher is so rich and handsome. Based on the baits last night, I bet $1 that they're definitely together. Not necessarily. The roses might be a second move by Christopher after failing to win her over. Well, we should ask Secretary Bai, since she was the one who carried the roses. Everly, who was mentioned, rolled her eyes and, leaning on her chair, weakly waved at me. Come on in, star of the show. At this moment, all eyes were on me. It turned out Everly had secretly revealed Christopher's intention to confess, and even set up a betting group on it. My colleagues looked at me with eager eyes. Valentina, reveal the truth and let the storm of love come even stronger. I frowned, trying to think of how to phrase it gently. Unexpectedly, such a small gesture made many colleagues nervous, their excitement deflating. Just as I was about to speak, I reconsidered. How dare they gamble behind my back? They needed a lesson. I lowered my gaze and waved my hand. The truth is always quite harsh. That was fair enough, as it was indeed harsh for single people, while other colleagues were speechless. Everly, confused, walked up to me and said incredulously, Valentina, don't be silly. Did you really refuse Christopher? Seeing me slightly pout and remain silent, Everly seemed panicked. What's going on? Christopher is so inept. I came all the way here to help. Help! She seemed to realize her mistake and quickly shut up. Just as I was about to ask, Christopher arrived, followed by 3 Mate 1 delivery guys, each carrying many items. Cup of milk tea and cake. Why is everyone just standing here, getting ready to welcome the milk tea and cake? Everyone was stunned, thinking, does Christopher really have such a big heart? Did he get rejected but still have the mood to buy things for his colleagues? Has the blow been so severe that he's gone mad? How considerate. I couldn't help but smile slightly and gave him a slightly annoyed glance. The delivery guy from Mate 1 placed the items at the door and left. Christopher came over holding a beautifully packaged box. In front of everyone's gaze, he gently pinched my earlobe. The black swan cake you wanted, with triple flavors. The delivery guy is 187 centimeters tall. As for his appearance, you'll have to judge that yourself, Christopher said, pointing to himself with a smile in his eyes. Seeing my stunned colleagues, and an Everly still in shock, I tugged on Christopher's sleeve and said, let me introduce everyone. This is my boyfriend, Christopher. He leaned in close to me. Hello everyone, I'm Valentina's boyfriend. He then pointed to the milk tea and cake. Valentina is treating everyone, so let's all share in the joy. Valentina, you dare to deceive me? Everly cried out in distress. I tilted my head, chuckling. Everly, and what about you? What's the story with your assist to Christopher? Aren't you going to come clean? It turned out that Everly was actually Christopher's cousin. When the incident with Leon caused a commotion at the old residence, she was there too. After learning about it, she volunteered to assist him. So the former green tea bitch had become my little sister-in-law. What a surprising experience. That this little twist didn't affect my colleagues' enthusiasm for shipping our relationship. I knew it. My God, the CPI ship is real. Wow, this is the first CPI I've shipped successfully. Christopher really loves her so much. Even his introduction says he's Valentina's boyfriend. See, even the most capable man will give you all the respect if he loves you. Didn't expect Christopher and Valentina to be this sweet. Who's really the one with love brain here? It's so sweet, and I'm not just talking about the milk tea and cake, but the love. As for who's more love-brained, I personally think Christopher might be a bit worse than me. Not to mention our age. Just considering Christopher's status as a CEO, I'm not sure if those business partners seeing him with a couple avatar might think they added the wrong person. For instance, he needs a good morning kiss every day, and a goodnight kiss before going to bed, and he praises himself for not asking us to move in together, saying it should wait until the time is right. He also quietly covered my rent. and he calls it love overtime pay. With such a wealthy, handsome, and love-brained CEO boyfriend, I'm afraid I'd laugh out loud even while hiding under the covers. One day, Delilah went to see a TikTok star's offline meet and greet, and Christopher had to rush back to city for an urgent meeting, leaving Everly and me alone at home, eating fried chicken and watching DVDs. Oh, by the way, in the drama, the big star Chiao Jingjing was overjoyed at the arrival of UTU, seeing her longtime crush again after many years. Everly suddenly poked my arm. Didn't you forget to turn off your microphone during the Ding Talk meeting? You know, but you didn't attend the meeting. Yeah, I was at Christopher's place then. I accidentally broke his water pipe, and he got all wet. I even asked if he wanted to change, but he said no, insisting that you'd want to see him like this. Everly clicked her tongue in disdain, continuing, you know, when I went to find you, he was grinning so wide that his mouth couldn't close. Good thing he knew to mute the mic. Otherwise, that laugh would have traveled to the Pacific Ocean. I was taken aback and couldn't help but laugh. I really didn't know that. That night, after Everly went home, I was snuggled up in bed, video chatting with Christopher who had finished his work. I deliberately coughed a couple of times and casually said, I heard someone deliberately wore a wet shirt to a meeting, laughing so much at the subordinate's place. He paused his work. Did Everly tell you? How does it feel to have your secret exposed? What's the big deal? You're my girlfriend, not someone else. He rubbed his earlobe absent-mindedly. Your earlobe isn't as soft. How can a rough guy compare to a sweet and soft girl like me? I immediately lifted my chin. Of course, I'm a sweet, soft, and beautiful girl. How sweet? Sweeter than Xinjiang spicy fried rice noodles. How soft? Soft as cotton candy. Suddenly, his gaze became deep and focused, and he licked his lips. Then I'd better savor it well when I get back. Officer, help, someone's being a rogue here. 6 months into our relationship, Christopher and I went back to Sitia to meet the parents. The old man praised me continuously, and after seeing my work record at the Lu Corporation over the years, he felt that Christopher had found a treasure. However, his numerous aunts and uncles thought that I should stay at home as a wealthy wife after marrying into the Lu family, instead of continuing to work at Lu Corporation and causing embarrassment. This wasn't my place to speak up, but to my surprise, old Mr. Lu was the first to disagree. He put down his blue and white porcelain teacup and gave everyone a cold look. Zizou's work capability is excellent. Having her at Lu Corporation is our blessing. Whether she wants to work or stay at home is her choice. No one can force her. This was like a rock-solid assurance, and I easily secured my position as the Lu family's daughter-in-law. So, when I saw Christopher coming to my house with a trunk full of gifts, looking helpless, I couldn't help but mock him, who was laughing at me during the day, saying I wasn't good enough. Christopher wrapped his arms around my waist, buried his head in my neck, and started moving his hands restlessly. I was ticklish and couldn't hold back my laughter, curling up and trying to roll to the other side, but he pulled me back into his arms. "Who said that? Being so mean, calling our little Christopher." Everly's previous green tea nickname was taken by me. Whenever I wanted to tease Christopher, I would call him that, deliberately provoking him. His eyes were fixed on me, intensely. Despite being a high and mighty figure, at this moment he was as quiet and obedient as a large pet dog, making me feel inexplicably satisfied. I narrowed my eyes, gently kissed his face, and was about to get up to watch TV on the sofa. But once again, he pulled me back. Christopher's palm had somehow become hot, and his breath against my ear was warm and ticklish. I couldn't help but shrink away. He gently kissed my earlobe, and with his other hand sliding from my shoulder, a delicate box appeared in front of me. "What's this?" "Open it and see." It was a custom-made crown ring. The ring he proposed with before was also quite valuable, but I had only liked it when I saw celebrities wearing crown rings on social media. I didn't expect him to see it. "You saw my like? Whatever my wife wants, I'll do my best to fulfill it." I put on the diamond ring. The beautiful crown reflected various lights under the dim light, looking both beautiful and mysterious. I loved it so much. almost wanting to hug and nibble it. I was overjoyed and turned back to kiss him. Christopher, I love you. He was taken aback, then licked his lips and suddenly pounced on me. So, my dear wife, do you want to fulfill my wish too? When I was drifting off to sleep, Christopher gently rubbed his cheek against mine. What's wrong? Still not sleeping? I mumbled. Nothing, just feeling very satisfied. Very satisfied.
Asterisk asterisk Christopher's perspective extra asterisk asterisk. Coming to the headquarters was completely arranged by the old man, so I was initially reluctant. I always had a bit of an attitude, which made me cold and indifferent. However, I had a little girl named Valentina working under me who was full of energy. When the boss served food, she would move the dishes. When the boss made a toast, she would drink first. When the boss arrived, she would block the car. I had never seen such an oblivious subordinate, but she always had a "the boss is going to fire me, I'll jump off the building" expression. Well, it wasn't a big deal. I tolerated it. Gradually, this tolerance changed. I found myself observing her often, curious about what she was doing, and even openly shielding her from alcohol during social events. Later, I suspected I might be in love with her. However, at that time, there were changes in the board of directors, and with instability and numerous tasks, I didn't have time to care about this matter until the unexpected event at the social gathering. When I found out she was missing, I searched everywhere and finally saw her in the elevator. I felt a huge sigh of relief. Unexpectedly, she kissed me forcefully. With such an embrace, only someone like me, a righteous gentleman, wouldn't do anything inappropriate. Humph, I'm really quite admirable. The next day, I had to leave early to deal with Leanne's issues. I didn't expect her to have a bit of background. I wanted to make a big move, but it had to go through the old man's approval. While I was dealing with things, Valentina actually ran away and voluntarily transferred to a branch office. I initially thought of chasing her, but later thought it was fine. When I finished everything and went to bring her back, it would be the same. She's so talented. Wherever she goes, she shines brightly. So when Everly came asking for help, I hesitated but agreed. If she didn't assist me, such an excellent girl, I feared I wasn't worthy of her. When she forgot to mute the mic during the Ding Talk meeting, causing a mix-up, I almost couldn't stop laughing, thinking to myself, it turns out I'm still charming. Being handsome really is useful. At this moment, I'm very grateful to the old man for giving me such a handsome face. Is it necessary? Getting teased and then going to the front. Look at how cheap your smile is. You don't understand. You single dog. Everly is just jealous. Naked jealousy. When I saw Valentina again, I admitted I missed her a lot. I couldn't help but want to confess and declare my feelings, but this impulse turned into motivation for work, and I spent the whole day working on documents with her. I consoled myself. No rush. Take it slow. Indeed, heaven heard my words. The girl in my heart is already sleeping beside me, safe and happy. Suddenly, I remembered a year into work, the driver took a leave, and Valentina called a car to negotiate a contract. Unexpectedly, she booked a discounted shared ride, and when she opened the door, there was a couple inside, dressed in my Armani suit, sitting in a discounted shared ride. I hadn't lost it yet, but Valentina had already started crying. The driver joked, "Bro, is my car a Lamborghini today?" This made Valentina laugh, and after laughing, she realized she had been wiping her tears with my suit jacket. "Boss, I'll pay you back." "No need. Sooner or later, you'll repay yourself to me, and the duration is a lifetime." The story ends here. Feel free to subscribe to the channel to receive the latest content. Many novels are updated daily.